We need fresh ideas, not old blood. That's what Victor said out loud and without flinching during our quarterly board meeting. His voice calm rehearsed as if he hadn't just gutted me in front of people I'd worked alongside for over 2 decades. He said it while looking directly at me. My name is Mason Rourke. I'm 48 years old. And until about 10 minutes ago, I was the senior project director at Harrison Brothers Development, one of the largest commercial construction firms in the Pacific Northwest. It was my grandfather who started this company with nothing but two trucks and rented wagons and a commute. My father expanded it, turned it into something new, something lasting, and you, I helped make it powerful. For 26 years, I gave that company everything I had. Long nights, weekends, missed vacations. I sacrificed a marriage, missed half my daughter's childhood, all for the family business. I stayed grounded, loyal, consistent. I thought that counted for something. Apparently not. I didn't argue when Victor made his announcement. I didn't plead. I didn't even look at anyone. I just smiled, leaned back in my chair, and nodded. The silence that followed was louder than any outburst. Uncle Alan looked down at his hands. Karen from finance began shuffling her papers like suddenly they were fascinating. Nobody could meet my eyes except Victor, who kept that damn polite smile like he was doing me a favor by cutting me loose. That's bold, I said. Good luck. And then I stood up, buttoned my jacket, and walked out. No dramatics. No accusations. No mention of the fact that I'd brought in the Redmont Tower contract, the one that single-handedly doubled our growth 5 years ago. No reminder that I personally handled our top-tier clients through the chaos of 2009 when other companies were going under like flies. They didn't deserve my words. Victor wanted a reaction, a big one. He wanted me to snap, to storm out, to make him look calm by comparison. That was the trap. I didn't give him the satisfaction. Outside, I stood beside my truck, same one I've driven for 14 years. I leaned against it for a while, letting the cold metal settle my nerves. 26 years. I started hauling lumber when I was 22. Worked 6 days a week through my 30s. Helped the company survive 3 recessions. Missed my daughter's graduation. Missed her swim meets. Her first heartbreak. I missed it all so Victor could stand in a room built on my shoulders and tell me I was the problem. I pulled out my phone and opened an email from Connor Briggs, CEO of Redmont Ventures. He'd confirmed that their next big project, a $3.8 million commercial campus outside Spokane, was going forward with a new contractor. That contractor was MR Construct, my new company, my clients. Victor had no idea that for the past 8 months I'd been building something on the side. Quietly, carefully, legally. I hadn't stolen anything. No files, no blueprints, no company secrets. Just the one thing Victor never saw coming: relationships. Connor had said it best. You're the reason we work with Harris Mason. If you go, we go. He wasn't the only one. Layla from Norhollow. Bradley from Union West. Tariq from Olive Hill. Samantha from Vantage Partners. They weren't just accounts on a ledger. They were people I'd flown out to meet, walked job sites with, celebrated birthdays, and closed deals over midnight phone calls. They trusted me, not the logo on my business card. Victor never understood that. He thought because he had the title, the money, the suits, that made him the face of the company. But buildings are made of steel and concrete. Trust is built differently. I climbed into my truck and drove off past the sign that still read Harrison Brothers Development, past the glass office I helped design, past a parking lot I once paved by hand in our early years. And something inside me shifted. Not anger, not grief, just finality. Like a door quietly closing behind me. The next morning, I arrived at a modest office building on the west side of town. I had rented a space above a tax firm, 2 private rooms, and a shared reception area. No signs yet, no frills. Just the start of something new. I was barely settled in when my phone rang. It was Victor. I let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again, and again. The 4th time I picked up. His voice was tight, strained. Mason, what the hell is going on? I didn't say anything. Connor just pulled Redmont. He said they signed with a company called MR Construct. He paused. That's you, isn't it? I took a slow breath. Sounds like you've got a problem. Victor didn't yell. Not at first. He was too calculated for that. His voice was sharp, coiled like a snake waiting to strike. Did you do this? I said nothing. He tried again. Did you take Redmont? I secured my future, I said calmly. Just like you secured yours when you pushed me out. There was a long pause. And then the voice I'd grown up with, my younger half-brother, now CEO of the company our grandfather built, snapped. Those are Harris and Brothers clients. They belong to the company. I nearly laughed. No, Victor. They were never yours. They were mine. I built those relationships. I was the one they called at midnight when a crane went down. I was the one walking their sites during ice storms. You think wearing a suit makes you the heartbeat of a construction firm? He started to say something. I cut him off. You didn't fire a project manager. You fired the last person anyone actually wanted to work with. He lost it. This isn't legal, Mason. We'll sue. You violated your contract. You? No, I said sharply. I didn't. I never signed a non-compete. I didn't take any documents, didn't contact anyone while still on payroll. My lawyer combed through every inch of it. I paused, then added, but go ahead. Try it. See what a judge thinks when your former clients testify that they came to me willingly. Another beat of silence. I could feel it over the phone the moment the panic set in. The calculations behind his eyes. The realization that I had moved first. That I had planned this for longer than he thought possible. Then his tone changed. We're brothers, Mason. We can work this out. I made a mistake. Okay, just come back. We'll fix it together. That's when it hit me. He didn't want me back. He wanted the clients back. This wasn't about family. It never had been. I didn't reply. I just hung up. And for the first time in months, I felt clear. 3 days later, Uncle Alan walked into my office. He looked around at the plain walls, the second-hand desk, the quiet hum of my new life. It's temporary, I said, not looking up from the resume I was reviewing. I know. He sat down without being asked. He'd been my father's right-hand man for over 30 years. Not blood, but close enough. He was one of the few people left who still understood what Harris and Brothers used to be about. Victor told the board everything. I raised an eyebrow. Everything that you planned this, that you stole clients, that you're trying to sink the company. I let out a breath. I didn't steal anything, Alan. I didn't poach. I didn't manipulate. I just left. And they followed. Alan leaned in, voice quieter. The board is talking about suing you. Victor's pushing hard. Let them. You really want to go down this road? No, I said, but I will if I have to. He looked at me long and tired. Your father's heart can't take this. That stopped me. Dad had stepped down the year before. 74 years old. Doctor said he needed less stress. So he handed the reins to Victor and assumed the board would protect the company's values. He was wrong. Your father's not well, Mason, Alan said. He's talking about coming out of retirement to fix this. I clenched my jaw. He shouldn't have to. Victor made this mess. He should clean it up. But I also knew what would happen if Harris and Brothers defaulted. If the banks got spooked. If those 5 clients were all lost at once. The company would collapse. And my father, he would blame himself. That night, my phone started lighting up. Electricians, plumbers, steelworkers, drywall teams. All subcontractors I'd worked with for years. They were nervous. Victor had started calling them, threatening to blacklist anyone who worked with MR Construct. Told them they'd never get another Harris job again. And it was working. One by one, they began pulling out. We're sorry, Mason. We just can't afford to lose their business. By midnight, I'd lost nearly every specialty contractor I'd lined up for the Redmont job. Without them, I couldn't fulfill the contracts I'd signed. And if I defaulted those clients, my supporters, they'd lose faith in me too. Victor hadn't just fired me. He was trying to destroy me. And he was damn good at it. The next morning, I drove out to see Dad. The house sat on 5 acres outside Boise. First real purchase he made when the company took off back in the 90s. He used to say a man who builds should always have space to look at the horizon. Mom opened the door. She hugged me like I was already gone. He was on the back porch, staring out at the woods. His cane rested beside him. Mason. His voice sounded older, not weak, just worn. Dad. I sat next to him. We didn't speak for a while. Just listened to the wind in the trees. Finally, he said, your brother tells me you're trying to bring down the company. That's not what I'm doing. Then what would you call it? I stared out at the same woods he was watching. I'm building something of my own after being pushed out of the thing I helped keep alive. He looked at me then, really looked. You couldn't work it out. Tell that to Victor. He fired me in front of the board. And now you've taken the biggest clients. They followed me. He sighed. Then said something that shifted everything. The company's not as solid as it looks, Mason. Victor's been borrowing against future projects. Projects tied to those clients. My stomach dropped. How much? Enough that if we lose those accounts, the bank will call in the loans. I sat there, processing. All this time, Victor wasn't just edging me out for ego. He was gambling the entire company's future on expansion plans built on my relationships. Why didn't you stop him? I should have, Dad said quietly. I wasn't paying attention. I thought you two could run it together. We sat in silence again. Then he said almost in a whisper, whatever happens next, just remember the name on that building is still ours. I nodded once, because I finally understood. This wasn't just about Victor anymore. It was about legacy. About protecting what was left. And deciding what I was willing to burn in order to build something that could truly stand. I left my parents' house with a storm in my chest. I wasn't angry, not in the way I'd been a few weeks ago. This wasn't the kind of rage that made you punch walls or raise your voice. No. This was the kind that pressed behind your ribs and made you feel like your entire life had shifted just a few degrees off-center. Victor hadn't just forced me out. He'd risked everything our family had built. And for what? A title. A legacy he thought he could take shortcuts to. While I poured concrete and kept the lights on, he gambled on projections and told himself he was building the future. And now the company was standing on a fault line, and the only thing holding the cracks together had already walked out the door. Back in my office, I sat in silence for a long time. My team, small as it was, could feel the tension. I'd hired 4 full-time staff so far, a site supervisor, a logistics coordinator, 2 assistants who wore every hat imaginable. They believed in me. They had left secure jobs to follow me. I couldn't fail them now. And yet, part of me couldn't ignore what my father had said. If Harris and Brothers defaulted on those loans, the collapse wouldn't just hurt Victor. It would hurt everyone, employees, families, retirees. People who had spent years, some decades, investing their time, trust, and lives into that company. Even my mother's retirement depended on its dividends. I had to decide. Let it fall and watch Victor eat the full consequences. Or try to save something I no longer belonged to. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept pacing between my desk and the window, running numbers, imagining headlines. Family construction empire collapses amid sibling feud. My name would be in that article. My father's legacy tarnished. I didn't want revenge anymore. I wanted peace. And peace might mean sacrifice. The next morning, I called Connor Briggs from Redmont Ventures. He picked up on the second ring. Mason, he said. Everything okay? Yeah, no, not really. What do you need? I hesitated. Then I said the words that tasted like rust in my mouth. I need a favor. He paused. You name it. I need you to meet with Victor. I'm sorry, what? Just hear him out. Maybe even consider splitting the Redmont project between both firms. He didn't respond right away. You're asking me to share the project with the company that fired you, the one threatening to sue you. I know how it sounds. Sounds like madness. It's complicated, I said. It's family. The silence stretched. Then Connor said, you know I trust you, but if this backfires, I understand, but I'm asking anyway. Another pause. Then I'll meet him. One by one, I made the same call to my other major clients. Layla, Samantha, Tariq, Bradley. Each conversation was harder than the last. They were confused, hesitant, even a little betrayed. They had put their faith in me. And now I was asking them to give a second chance to the company that had shown me the door. But eventually each of them agreed reluctantly to hear Victor out. Once that was set, I called my attorney. Told her I needed a new proposal drafted by morning. Something bold. Something fair. Something that wouldn't let Victor slither his way back into full control. She understood the stakes. Then I dialed Victor. He answered immediately. His voice was strained. I've been trying to reach you. I know. I assume you've spoken to Dad. I have. Silence. Then, so now you understand how serious this is. I do. And I have a proposal, I said. He didn't respond right away. Meet me tomorrow morning. 7 a.m. My office. He hesitated. Why would I do that? Because I've asked all 5 clients to reconsider working with Harris. They've agreed to meet with you. Another beat of silence. What's the catch? No catch, just be there. Then I hung up. That night I barely slept. My mind kept running through every way this could blow up in my face. If Victor rejected the proposal, if the clients pulled out entirely, if the board moved forward with their lawsuit. But I had made my choice. I wasn't going to destroy the company my grandfather built. I just wanted to rebuild without burying anyone else in the rubble. Victor arrived the next morning at exactly 7:00. He looked like he hadn't slept either. His eyes were bloodshot. His tie was crooked. His usual smugness gone. He sat down across from me but didn't say a word. So I handed him the document. It was simple. A strategic partnership between MR Construct and Harrison Brothers. The 5 major clients would be split 3 for them, 2 for me. That would give them enough to keep the banks calm and give me enough to build something real. But there were conditions. Victor would step down as CEO. My father would return temporarily, just long enough for the board to find a neutral successor. All expansion plans would be frozen. All pending legal threats against me or MR Construct would be dropped. Victor read it in silence. When he looked up, there was no fight left in him, just exhaustion. So, you get your revenge after all. This isn't about revenge, I said quietly. It's about keeping something worth saving and letting go of the rest. He sat back, studied me. The board won't like this. The board will like bankruptcy even less. He didn't argue. After a long minute, he signed. And as he pushed the paper back to me, I saw something in his eyes. Shame. He straightened his jacket. I really thought I was doing the right thing, you know. For the company. I didn't answer. Some things don't deserve a response. After he left, I called my father. Told him what had happened. He didn't say much. Just let out a slow breath that seemed to lift 20 pounds from his chest. Then I called the clients, let them know about the new arrangement. By noon, it was done. Not a perfect solution. Not a clean victory. But something that could work. And sometimes, that's the best you can hope for. 6 months. That's how long it had been since the morning Victor signed the partnership agreement. 6 months since I'd watched him walk out of my office, not defeated exactly, but different. He wasn't the same man who had fired me with a smile. That version of him had cracked somewhere between the lawsuits he threatened and the realization that I had outmaneuvered him without ever raising my voice. I hadn't seen him since. Word was he'd left Boise altogether. Took a position with a development firm in Denver, something in acquisitions. A fresh start, far from the wreckage he'd almost caused. As for Harrison Brothers, they were still standing. Barely at first, but breathing. With the clients split between our firms, they were able to satisfy the bank's immediate concerns. My father had stepped back in temporarily as agreed. Just long enough to clean house, bring in new financial advisors, and stabilize what was left. He didn't want the job anymore. His health wouldn't allow it. But he had enough strength left to steady the ship. And when it came time to hand the reins to someone new, the board chose Denise Callahan, a seasoned executive with 30 years in construction management and a reputation for fixing what others had broken. She wasn't flashy, but she was tough, methodical, and didn't tolerate ego. Exactly what the company needed. I had my own rebuilding to do. MR Construct had kept 2 of the biggest clients, Redmont Ventures and Norhollow Corp., and with that foundation, I was able to slowly scale. Not explosively, but intentionally. We hired cautiously, prioritized quality, took fewer contracts, but executed with precision. Today, we're a team of 38. We're not chasing every big deal. We're building smart, steady. And I'm finally seeing my daughter on the weekends again. One gray morning in late March, I stood at the construction site for the Redmont office complex. Steel beams rose behind me. Crews moved with rhythm. The frame of the building was taking shape, a real thing growing out of blueprints and promises. The site was 2 weeks ahead of schedule. I ran a hand over the concrete edge of the first floor slab. Felt the chill in it. The weight. The permanence. And that's when I heard footsteps behind me. Looking solid, Mason. I turned to see Connor Briggs, hard hat in hand, surveying the structure with quiet satisfaction. 2 weeks ahead, I said. We might finish the frame by early May. He nodded. Not surprised. This is why we followed you. He hesitated for a moment, then added, Your brother called me last week. I didn't say anything. Just waited. He wanted to apologize. That caught me off guard. Said he made a mistake letting you go. Said you were the one who understood what made the company work. I looked down at the dirt. Didn't know what to feel. Relief. Closure. None of it came. Connor continued. He also mentioned he's starting something out in Denver. Asked if I had any contacts in that region. I raised an eyebrow, and I gave him some names. He studied me. That okay with you? I thought about it. Longer than I expected to. Then finally said, yeah, it's okay. And it was. We walked the site together, talked timelines, materials, potential bottlenecks, but my mind kept drifting back to Victor. To that moment in the boardroom. To the sound of silence after he fired me. People think redemption comes with trumpets, but sometimes it's just an awkward phone call, a missed handshake, a sentence that lands years too late. A year to the day after I was fired, I found myself standing outside the Harrison Brothers headquarters. It looked the same. Same sign, same brick exterior. But it wasn't the same company. They had downsized significantly. Focused on smaller regional contracts. More hands-on, less speculative. No more grand expansion dreams. My father was retired again for real this time, and Denise was slowly rebuilding the firm's reputation from the inside out. They weren't dominant, but they were respected. That's more than most companies can say after what we'd been through. I wasn't there for a contract negotiation or a reconciliation. I was there because Dad had asked me to come. Said he had something he wanted me to see. Inside, a few familiar faces nodded at me. Some looked surprised. Some looked away. No one said anything. That was fine. I took the elevator up to the executive floor, the same one where Victor had blindsided me. But when I stepped into the conference room, something had changed. The expensive abstract artwork was gone. In its place, large framed photographs lined the wall, 3 side by side. On the left, my grandfather standing beside his first 2 trucks in 1973. In the center, my father breaking ground at the River Point project in 1995. And on the right, me, 10 years ago shaking hands with the mayor after completing the landmark plaza ahead of schedule. I stood there staring. Words caught in my throat. Denise's idea, my father said from behind me. She said we needed to remember our foundations. I turned. He looked older, slower, but proud. You built a good company, Mason. Your own thing. I'm proud of you. I nodded. Thanks, Dad. We didn't talk about Victor. We didn't need to. Some things break and don't get fixed. But that doesn't mean you can't build something new from the pieces that remain. Later that evening, as I left the building, I looked up at the Harrison Brothers logo for one last time. It didn't hurt anymore. Because I truly knew that what I'd built wasn't just reactionary. It was mine, earned, clean, and that kind of peace. That's not something anyone can fire you from. 1 year, 365 days since Victor sat across from me at that long boardroom table and fired me with a smile. It feels both distant and sharply familiar. I've learned that time doesn't always move in straight lines. Sometimes it loops. Circles back around to test whether the lesson stuck. Whether the scars hardened or whether you're still raw underneath. I parked outside Harrison Brothers again. Same building. Same stone entryway I walked through for 26 years. But this time I wasn't walking in with a pitch deck or a plan. I wasn't here for business. I was here because my father had called the night before and said simply, "Come by, no pressure, I just want you to see something." Inside, not much had changed. The receptionist gave me a warm smile. One of the newer hires, young, eager, the kind of person we used to joke had no idea what a framing hammer even looked like, walked past me with a clipboard and didn't look twice. It was strange walking these halls not as an employee, not even as an outsider, but as someone adjacent to the legacy. Not part of it anymore, but still connected in a way that mattered. When the elevator doors opened on the executive floor, I paused before stepping out. That hallway used to carry so much weight, so much expectation. Every time I walked it, I felt like I had to prove something. But not today. Today I just walked. Dad was waiting in the conference room, the same one where it all began, where it all unraveled, and where somehow pieces had started to fall back into place. He was sitting at the far end of the table, hands folded, a man at peace. "Glad you came," he said. I nodded and sat across from him. We didn't speak for a while. Sometimes silence does more than words ever could. Finally, he turned slightly and gestured toward the wall behind him. I looked. Those 3 framed photos still hung there. My grandfather with his first 2 trucks in '73. Dad breaking ground in '95. Me grinning in a gray suit with a steel tower rising behind me. And just beneath them, a new plaque. It read, "Legacy is not what we inherit. It's what we build, what we protect, and what we leave stronger than we found it." I read it twice. Once for memory, once for meaning. Dad leaned forward. "You know, I used to think legacy meant keeping the company in the family, passing it down like a blueprint line by line. But I was wrong." He met my eyes. "You taught me that legacy is about what we stand for, not the name on the door." I didn't respond, not right away, because my throat was tight in that way that happens when something true lands deeper than you expect. I thought back to the early mornings, the job sites in freezing rain, the silence in the truck after another client meeting. I thought about what I lost my first marriage time with my daughter, pieces of myself I'll never get back. And I thought about what I gained. A second chance, a new name, a future that didn't require permission from anyone. As I stood to leave, Dad said quietly, "Victor's doing okay in Denver. Denise hears from him now and then." I nodded. "I'm glad," I said, and I meant it. "Maybe one day." He didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. I smiled soft and honest. Maybe. Back in my truck, I didn't drive away right away. I sat with my hands on the wheel looking out at the city I helped shape. Buildings I helped raise. People I helped train. I didn't feel bitter. I didn't feel smug. I felt ready. That afternoon, I stopped by the Redmont site. The steel skeleton had grown since I'd last been there. It was real now, something that couldn't be undone with a single meeting or board vote. Connor Briggs was walking the perimeter with a site foreman. He waved me over when he saw me. "You finally done playing diplomat?" he asked with a grin. I chuckled. "Just tying off some loose ends." He pointed toward the third floor's glass framing going up. "That's going to be the view from the executive suite. You pick the design yet?" Leaning toward clean and quiet. He raised an eyebrow. "You're not going to put up a photo wall like your old man?" I smiled. "Maybe just one." Later, as I walked through the space that would soon be MR Construct's permanent office, I paused at the corner window. The view stretched over the river and toward the mountains. Open. Unfinished. Full of potential. Kind of like me. Before I left, I opened my notebook and wrote something on the final page. Just a sentence. Nothing dramatic. It read, "We didn't fix everything, but we didn't break it all either. Sometimes that's enough." Final reflections. In the end, this wasn't a story about who won or lost. It wasn't about power or revenge or who got the bigger piece of the pie. It was about dignity, family, boundaries, and what it costs to walk away from something you helped build. It's about knowing when to fight and when to let go, when to lead and when to leave. Victor and I were never meant to build the same way, but that doesn't mean either of us failed. It just means we built differently, and maybe that's how legacies evolve. Not through control, but through choice. So to anyone out there who's been overlooked, pushed out, or forced to start again, let this be your reminder. You don't need the title. You don't need the permission. You just need the courage to begin again. Quietly. Intentionally. And this time, on your own terms.